And welcome back. You're listening to centralcoastradio.com, where we're going to continue our chat now about Metro Comic Con last weekend. Lee, what did you learn from the panels that you went to last weekend at Metro Comic Con?
Well, some of the highlights, David Harbour, he was probably my favourite, of course from Stranger Things and many others. I loved how he spoke about his love of acting to the point where he doesn't mind if he's doing community theatre or professional theatre or acting, TV shows or film. He just felt like he's always called to do that, to always act since he was young, always had a burning desire to do it. He loved working with the cast of Stranger Things, and he shared some moments, I guess, that he'd had on set. One in particular was with him and Winona sitting around smoking and hanging out while waiting on set to film, and just got to know each other more and had some really good moments and became good friends. And also seeing Millie grow up on set, so the actress of Eleven, who plays Eleven on Stranger Things. He spoke about on Black Widow, some of the scenes in the snow and having his feet cut up and bleeding, and I think one of his comments was something like, but he knew that to get through those sorts of scenes or that pain, he does it for his fans and he just focuses on that, and wasn't really complaining at all, was just explaining the situation, and just how much he loved making the Black Widow film. Did you get anything out of David Harbour?
Yeah, I like you said, I love the fact that he's just someone who loves acting so much, and when people asked him what some of his favourite roles have been over the years, they weren't the ones that people were expecting. Like, you would expect him to say, oh, my role in Black Widow or something like that, something massive, but he said that some of his favourite moments have been doing theatre in New York, where he's got to work with some of his favourite actors that he grew up watching. So yeah, I really learnt that he while he loves Stranger Things and he loves doing the big epic movies, his career is mainly about just the love of acting, and that includes his theatre work as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now Jamie Campbell, I loved hearing about his music. He is singing, guitar, violin, writing of songs. He said he'd been listening to a lot of gospel music and just shared some thoughts about the devil and things like that as well. Now, on Stranger Things, he's an orderly who attends to 11, but he's also Vecna. Now, the fascination with Vecna from the crowd obviously was, how long does it take to put on that suit and makeup? Well, 7 hours was the answer. Just crazy. So I think he said something about a 3 a.m. start for a 10 a.m. shoot.
Yep.
Now that's pretty committed. Very committed.
I didn't get the opportunity to ask him, but I wanted to ask if it was like the actor who played Dargo in Farscape, where he used to go in early like that because it used to take hours to put it on. He'd fall asleep. Like, they'd let him sleep in the makeup chair.
Oh, yeah, he didn't say.
Yeah, I know on Farscape, Virginia Hay on Farscape used to do the same too, because she used to be covered in blue from head to foot. They used to let her go to sleep for a few hours while they did it.
So, yeah, he spoke about how he and Millie, actress of 11 as well, had become friends. And when they first started on the set, because she was so young, she was a bit scared of the costume. He reminisced about his friendship with Millie too, like post-production, and how she had recently had news and she rang and told him first, and that was really special to him and things like that. So that was awesome. He spoke a little bit about Harry Potter, and he has a really small part where he jumps out of a window, and that is in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, where Harry sees a vision, and he sees young Grindelwald, which is played by Jamie, jump out the window. So I went back because I've seen Harry Potter so many times, and I watched that little scene, and you know, it's such a small part, but so impressive, visually important to the story. And he was just so happy to be on that set, I guess, and take any chance to be there. Twilight, he is, of course, Caius with the Volturi, starred alongside people like Dakota Fanning. Now, he didn't talk too much about Twilight, but hinted, made a remark about how you don't need to be so, what do you call it? Embarrassed about being in Twilight now, which I think is a real shame because his performance in Twilight is really good, actually, and the Volturi are very interesting group, and certainly darker than the vampires who are sparkling all the time and interacting with humans a lot. So that's a much darker character that he plays there, and there is nothing to be embarrassed about that. I just want to say that, I think he does really well in that, and I was excited to see him because he had been in Twilight as well as Stranger Things. I think the thing that really stood out to me too about Jamie is how compassionate he was. There was a young fan who in the audience got up to do the Q&A and disclosed that they had a terminal illness and shared that Stranger Things had helped them get through hard times. And the young person became quite overwhelmed because obviously, that sickness is still there. So now at the point of becoming overwhelmed and not being able to ask the question they got up to ask, Jamie just got them to come and sit alongside him on the side of the stage and quietly spoke to them and encouraged them and got the question from them, so that it wasn't so overwhelming, and just really gave them time. He cares for his fans. And I think it was a really touching moment for everyone to sit and witness and see how genuine he was, just as a person. And I think just that caring nature really shone through, and he wasn't trying to get anything out of that from any of the audience. It was a genuine, oh my goodness, I care about you.
Yeah, we saw that twice across the weekend. Jamie did it but so did Tom Ellis from Lucifer as well. Somebody got up to ask Tom Ellis a question, and her anxiety got the better of her, and she couldn't talk, and she started to cry. So Tom actually he got down off the stage and went over to her and said, "You can just say it away from the microphone," because he could tell it was the microphone that was scaring her. So yeah, it was good to see them willing to do that, because some of the guests at some of the events are kind of like, "No, don't let the people come near me," but they were both friendly enough to let people come and talk to them. So yeah, that was great.
Yeah, yep. Kerry Payton was another highlight for me, of course from The Walking Dead, and plays King Ezekiel. Now, he spoke a lot about the character. And Cyborg in Teen Titans, yes, which is his other big role. I was going to say that later, but spoke a lot about King Ezekiel. And something that kind of stood out to me was he spoke about when his character became sick. He told the writers that whether Ezekiel lived or died, that Ezekiel would need to fight to the end and never give up and hold his head high, because he thought that's what his character would do. But when he revealed more, he spoke about his own dad fighting cancer in real life and never giving up, and he wanted to see Ezekiel have that same fight in him, so it became very personal to him. I think it was more, if the character lived or died, it would, he would accept that either way, but whatever happens, he still needs to be fighting, still needs to be, having his head held high. So I won't give a spoiler for those who haven't quite seen the end of Walking Dead, but make sure that you do. If you've started the series, keep going, watch it to the end, and you'll see what does or doesn't happen to Ezekiel. Yes, he did speak about voicing the cyborg in DC's Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go, but when he was talking about those voices, he highlighted that he's done many other voices. So I did have a look up at how many voices he might have done.
Yeah.
And there's over 30 characters.
Yep.
So he gave us a little demonstration from the Tooth Fairy character, and that was very amusing for all the audience.
And if you've never seen Teen Titans Go to the Movies, check that out as a film. It's such a funny little parody film about superheroes. And yeah, Carrie Payton does the voice of Cyborg, of course, in that. And I got to ask him a question. I asked him about where did he think Ezekiel would be after everything finished on The Walking Dead as well. So, yeah.
Spoiler.
Yeah. We should have also mentioned that someone gave something away too. Jamie Campbell Bower made a statement about Stranger Things where he said, "We will be back bigger and better this year." So,
He might have just meant the production.
yeah, I don't think so. I think we might be seeing Vecna back in Stranger Things this next season.
But he
so,
might have said it.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. Tom Ellis, he was so fascinating to listen to. Now I have to say that most of the
From Lucifer.
from Lucifer, most of the in terms of all the different actors, a lot of the room was pretty full, pretty full. Now Tom's was one that was pretty full, as was many others. Of course David Harbour's was also packed out. But yes, Tom Ellis has a lot of charisma. He's charming, he's sweet. The audience were very responsive to everything he was saying. We got quotes in Lucifer's voice, using the line, "What do you truly desire?" Which, if you've seen that series, you can actually picture in your head and hear him saying that in that voice. He brought out a guitar and sang "Creep," which he also sings in the series. But it was so good seeing that live and, yeah, hearing his talent for singing and playing guitar. Now, an audience or fan member asked about his father being a Baptist minister and his family being religious versus him playing character of Lucifer. And it was just lovely to hear that, he spoke really well of his family and the relationship he has with his family, and it's not a barrier with them at all. Like, they find his character fascinating, I guess, and yeah, so it's good to hear, I guess, even with that religious background, that can help in that role because he has a understanding and an in-depth knowledge, I guess, of in real life what Satan or the devil can do and how tricky he can be, or the trickster moves he can make and all of that. And I guess as a society, we don't really talk much about the devil, and I think it's a little bit of a taboo subject at times. Even talking about God these days is a bit of a taboo subject with some people. So it was just great to hear that side of I guess any challenges he may have had with accepting that role, but no, it was exciting for him, and yeah,
he was awesome. It's a show that I want to get back into watching. I kind of watched it for a while and then went away from it because there was so much else going on. But I found it interesting with the way that he played the character, and I think hearing him talk about that, and also how much the cast enjoyed working together. And we heard previous cast members of Lucifer say the same thing about how they were one big family. So yeah, it's definitely made me want to go back and watch the series now.
Yeah. DB Woodside, also great to hear from. Talked a bit about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, how much he loved working with the crew, especially Eliza Dushka, which we all love her character.
I got a hug from her once.
Yeah, you did. And and in more than just Buffy. I think she's in, is it True Calling that
Yeah.
she's in?
Yep.
I really loved that series back in the day.
Dollhouse.
Yeah, she's in
Yep.
a lot of things too. He spoke about his recent role as Eric Monk's Secret Service agent, and he was on protection detail, and that's in The Night Agent. Now, I think I watched that on Netflix recently, and I really enjoyed that series. People want to talk about his death scene. Now, that is kind of a spoiler, but it's also, well, is he dead or alive at the start of the next season? Is the next season happening? So, he alluded to there's probably a second season, and he may or may not be alive. But certainly the death scene, people were interested in how difficult was it, and apparently it was raining while he was in that scene where he's acting dead and the rain's hitting him and he's having to remain really still and things like that. So that was, interesting to hear. And of course, with his role in Lucifer, he really talked about that crew really being a family. I think the sense of family came across even more than the acting, to be honest. It's just great to hear that, they all care about each other so much, and, they really are invested in these shows to make it the best for their fans. Now, D.B. Woodside also spoke about how much of an introvert he is, and it just made us really grateful for his presence at the con, because it can take him 4 to 5 days to recover once he gets back home, where he's not really present with family and friends and just needs time out, because it takes a lot out of him. So while he was present, in the Q&As and taking in all the questions and answering them all in depth, he wasn't avoidant of anything, and he didn't come across as shy. But because he's an introvert, it does take a toll on him later on. So I guess I was just really grateful that he takes his time out for his fans when he knows that there's a bit of a downside to it later on.
Yeah, and he also explained or let people know about something that's been a big question for Buffy fans over the years. Now, when Buffy came to a close, there was a big rumor that there was going to be a show called Faith as a spin-off. Now, he explained that all over the years, some people have said, nah, it was just a fans wishing it. That wasn't actually the case. He said that Joss Whedon actually did write a show called Faith, and it was supposed to be his character, the school principal, Faith, and also James Marsters' character of Spike was supposed to be in the spin-off. But at the time, Eliza Dushku felt that she needed a little bit of space before she went back to play Faith, and by the time she was ready to go back, the network wasn't interested. So, that was unfortunate, but he did explain that, that really did happen. So
we would love to see a reunion one day.
Yeah, definitely. So they keep on talking about a Buffy one at the moment, but not with the original cast, like a reboot. So yeah.
Back the original.
But we did actually get to see a couple of other panels as well. We saw Joshua Orpin, who, to his credit, came in at the last moment because of a couple of people pulling out because of sickness. Now, he, of course, plays Superboy in Titans, so he was able to have a good talk to us about what it's been like for an Australian actor to go into the DC universe, and I got to ask him a question as well, which or two questions actually. So I was able to ask him about what it's been like playing such a classic character as Superboy, and the pressures that put on him. And it turned out he's a big comic book fan, so he was well and truly aware of the character. And I also had to ask him what it's like working with the dogs that play Crypto on Titans as well, and so he talked a little bit about that. I also
I was just gonna say I asked him about what is it like coming from acting school and then going straight into a well-known role, and he was explaining how his dad had always been asking, when are you going to do a role that I really enjoy, like a character that I would really like. And so this was the character. And so, you know, there's those proud moments as parents where you love what your kid's doing, but then those moments where they can connect together and they've got something to kind of celebrate together, I guess, and watch together. And it was just great hearing him talk about his family and friends and what it's been like transitioning to someone quite well known.
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear that. And I also got a chance to go and see Brendan Furr as well, of course, from Roswell, a show that I loved. But of course, he's also in a movie that I love called The Forsaken Desert Vampires. So it was great to hear him talk about how celebrityism can be kind of taken away from you. Like, he was a teen idol, one of the biggest stars in Hollywood at the time when he was doing Roswell. And when I asked him about The Forsaken, he said he thought that was going to be the movie that was going to make him the next Tom Cruise, like this huge vampire film. And instead of becoming a big blockbuster, it became a cult classic, like a film that more serious film lovers like. So he never got to that Tom Cruise kind of stature in his career. But he said he's loved his career. Like, for him, he went to do Roswell and he was going to do it for a few years, and then he was going to become a maths teacher. And he said he's never had to go back to being a maths teacher. So to him, his career has been successful as an actor. But it was really interesting to hear him talk about that. He talked about what it was like working with the likes of Katherine Heigl when they were very, very young on Roswell. So yeah, that was a really interesting one as well. And we also saw Henry Thomas as well from E.T. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that one? Because you love that one a little bit more than me, so...
Yeah, I guess, you know, everyone had E.T. questions, which was lovely because you reminisce about your childhood, and a lot of people had passed that down to their kids and watched it as families as years have gone on as well. And one of the questions was about, you know, do you mind being remembered from E.T. above probably most other films that you've been in? And Henry was really talking about, you know, it did bother him when he was younger for a while, but as he's become older, he's kind of realised that if any of your work makes an impression on people and they can remember your work however many years later, 40 plus years later, then you've brought joy to that person, and it doesn't matter which role you're in that has had that lasting impression. I guess it's more, I don't think he used these exact words, but the thing that he was trying to say, or he did say, was about, you know, it's a privilege to be remembered for that role. It's not a role that's come and gone, like you've made a big lasting impression. He commented on Drew Barrymore as a little girl, having said to him when he was a kid, how many films have you done? And I think he'd done maybe 2 at that stage.
He'd done one.
One. This was the second, though. Is that right?
Yeah.
He was the second. So about to be 2. And she said something like, well, I've done 4. So yeah, he just shared those childhood memories, and we love Drew Barrymore as well, and she was such a sweet kid, so I can kind of imagine her saying that too. And he spoke a little bit about Midnight Mass, which I think is also a Netflix series, which I watched recently as well. It's kind of spiritual production, I guess. And yeah, loved his character in that. If you haven't seen that, give it a go. If you like kind of, I guess it's the horror genre still. Yeah, so if you haven't checked that out, have a look at it. And he also was asked questions about The Haunting of Hill House, and good memories with that as well. So yeah, so it was just great hearing about his career over the years. People had questions about why actors and writers are on strike at the moment as well, and And one of the audience members made a bit of a remark about how it's not fair, and everyone should just get back to their productions. And he just explained very nicely to everyone about the complexities of it, but also was really encouraging and supportive of writers, and that they should be paid adequately for their work. And also spoke about a possible pending strike of actors that's going to also happen in the near future. But I think he just handled questions so well and gently, and he still has that boyish smile. Like, he was lovely, a lovely addition to this panel. It was lovely to hear from him.
Yeah, definitely. So that is our wrap up of all of the panels that we saw at Metro Comic Con this year. We'll be back in just a moment on centralcoastradio.com.